Good morning. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which is a part of our Tide webinar series. Today, we're focusing on foundations for financial success, personal budgeting and planning, and a guide for commercial fishermen. My name is Jeff Frank. I'm a Senior Community Development Officer here at the Island Institute. I'm joined today by Jen Dobransky of the Small Business Development Centers. And Jen, please feel free to take it away here. Then I'll come back on.
Sure. Great. Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We have a little bit of housekeeping, but we wanted to start with um, a little bit, give you a little bit more information. This particular webinar is part of a five-part series that we're doing targeted to the commercial fishing industry. And today we're talking about personal finances and kind of creating a budget. You can see our next, we have three more after today. Next, in 2 weeks, we have one on tax preparation. We have a funding opportunity webinar coming up later in April, and then webinar about credit and credit scores in early May.
Island Institute is a 41-year-old organization working throughout the coast and island communities, supporting these communities in a variety of economic and community development avenues. We boldly navigate climate and economic change with island and coastal communities to expand opportunities and deliver solutions. This project, the Future of Fishing webinars, are from a federal earmark aimed at both helping lobster fishing families become more profitable and thereby more resilient with their current fishing, as well as helping to diversify incomes in fishing communities and fishing families by helping those families create new sources of income. So while this series of webinars are focused primarily on helping current fishing practices become more profitable, you'll see some of the other work we're doing in this program as helping with diversifying. And that is, I'll talk, I think the next slide here. You'll see more about this on our Future of Fishing Toolkit on the Island Institute's website, right under resources, where you can find all the past webinars, future webinars coming up. Some of them, tomorrow is one, just tomorrow, the next one is with Profit Decoder. This is a business out of, there we go, is an online financial management tool. We've worked with Profit Decoder, which is based out of Mount Desert Island, to create a financial management tool online. It's very easy to use, specifically for lobster fishing. So what this allows you to do is put in some information about your fishing and send different scenarios about whether if you buy more traps, will that make you more profitable? If you fish one more day, will that make you more profitable? If the price goes up or down, you can try out different practices before you put them into play. And what this provides you with some basic financial management that can also be really helpful in terms of bookkeeping and managing your day-to-day expenses. So that is a program we've created. You can sign up for the next Profit Decoder website webinar. There's also a past one on the Future Fishing Toolkit on the Island Institute's website. And with that, we're also offering a 1-year free subscription to Profit Decoder, which will give you a code if you attend the webinar. We'll send you a code by email. It will likely come from me. And you can go to Profit Decoder and get a free 1-year subscription. And we would love it if you gave us any feedback while you're using Profit Decoder about how we can make this more useful and um, more easy to use as well for anybody in the lobster industry. So this is something we're regularly improving. So we'd love to have your feedback. And leave the next slide.
Yeah.
Great. Once again, this webinar is being recorded and we can send you the slides. These slides will also be up on that Future of Fishing Toolkit website, as well as the recording if you'd like to take a look at it again later. Thank you very much. And Jen.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, just to kind of reiterate, thank you so much for being here today. If you do have questions, we encourage questions, of course. If you do have questions that you think of offline, feel free to send us an email. Our email addresses are there. Um, so I just kind of want to tell you just a tiny bit about the Maine Small Business Development Center. I am the business advisor that works in the Mid-Coast for the SBDC, and we are primarily an educational organization. Our mission is to educate and empower small businesses in the state. There's about 12, soon to be 14 business advisors scattered across the state, and working with small business owners in pretty much any field, and supporting and helping those business owners create, grow, and succeed in their small businesses. In addition to educational webinars that we do pretty regularly, we also offer no cost, confidential, individualized business advising, so one-on-one advising. And that is open to anyone across the state. Um, and so to the extent that we do a lot of, our what we do is business advising pretty exclusively. This particular webinar about personal finances and budgeting may seem a bit of a departure, but I've been a business advisor for about 15 years now. And I can tell you that having solid personal finances is critical to the success of a small business. So we're going to talk a little bit more about why we think that this is an important topic to discuss, particularly as it relates to your business. Going to potentially introduce this concept of financial well-being. If you haven't heard that yet, we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, your money mindset, which I think is an important conversation to have, at least initially. And then really, I see this as a step-by-step guide or process for you to consider. We really are wanting to give you kind of practical information that you can take away today and use. So I do hope that that is conveyed to you as really a how-to for you to get started today. And then we have a lot of different strategies that we're going to share with you, different tools, tips for success for sure. Kind of a bit of a potpourri of information that we're going to share kind of towards the end of our time together today. And then of course, next steps and action plan for what to do next. So in terms of why personal finances and budgeting matters, really, I kind of said it already that when your personal finances are sound and in order, it makes your business decisions and the operation of your small business easier, right? The other factor that I think is really important is that this particular industry is incredibly unpredictable. There is wildly fluctuating income, kind of wild weather, wildly high expenses. All of those things kind of contribute to this unpredictability. And that really requires careful money management. And I think those factors are really why we wanted to kind of take on this topic of personal finances and budgeting, because it's so critical to your success. And ultimately, you want to be able to grow your business, be sustainable, be able to make sound decisions. All of those things are important. We at the SBDC want that for you. That's what we do with folks every day. And I think that this is this tool of kind of being able to manage your personal finances well will only help with the business growth and sustainability. And so I wanted to just share these two quotes with you that have a similar sentiment. The first one, a budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. And then the second one, it takes just as much energy to wish as it does to plan. So these two quotes, I think, again, I think they have a similar sentiment. And really, I wanted to share those with you because just to encourage you to recognize that you are in the driver's seat of this process, right? Again, educating and empowering you to kind of take this task on. So, being in the driver's seat, telling your money where it needs to go, and taking a planful approach, putting your energy into planning, right, is really, really critical. So I just want to kind of share that sentiment, hopefully, as a way to guide our conversation today. And the other thing I wanted to share was this concept of your money mindset. And your money mindset is essentially where you learn how to interact with and make decisions around money. And this can come from a lot of different places. It oftentimes comes as a child from family, what you see in your community, some personal experiences that you have growing up or over time. There's a lot of kind of media images around, how we should be with money. That is kind of everywhere, kind of permeates everywhere. And really, this is mostly to say that you have a money mindset. Your attitude towards money influences your financial decisions. And that also that it can be learned and changed. So if that's something that perhaps it's not the best money mindset, you have awareness around that and you want to change that, that is something that you can do because it is a learned behavior. I encourage you to focus on your strengths because everyone has strengths when it comes to this, the money mindset. And then also, again, awareness that this is critical to your success. So just have awareness about it and change it if it needs to be changed, emphasize your strengths, etc. So just wanted to introduce that and have you begin to think about that. And then the other piece I wanted to talk about was this concept of financial well-being. And there's been a lot of research about what financial well-being is, what it means to various people. It's really curious to me that the concept of financial well-being is possible regardless of income, which I thought was interesting when I was doing the research for that. But essentially, it's a state of being where a person can fully meet their current and ongoing financial obligations, feel secure in their financial future, and make choices that allow them to enjoy life. So again, this kind of combination of, being in the driver's seat of where your money is going, taking a planful approach, being aware of what your money mindset is, and then kind of striving towards the goal of financial well-being so that you can feel like you are meeting those current obligations and making choices that allow you to enjoy life, I think is really, really important. So that's kind of, I wanted to have that as the backdrop of some of our discussion here today. So in terms of how you go about creating a personal budget, if you're kind of at the beginning stages, or maybe you've tried once before and didn't quite work for you, or you're starting again, whatever the scenario is for you, I want to encourage you to think of the process as a cycle, not as a four parts process that stops after step four, but that you can continually iterate on this. So, and ultimately we have, four steps if we can look at it in that way. And I'll break it down a little bit for you. The first step is to assess. The second step, of course, is to set some goals. Step three, to create a plan or a budget. And then step four is to try it out and make adjustments. So again, encourage you to look at this as a process. It's something that you continually do in order for you to reach success on this. I want to just highlight too, there are so many times when I work with folks where they want to go directly into step three and they just want to open their notebook or open their app or spreadsheet and just start. And I just want to caution you against that, because there are two additional steps here that are really, really important. And again, I'm going to dig into those a little bit more. But again, I think it's important for you to think of this as a four-step process, and honor each of those steps because they are as critical for the process. So in terms of step one, it is assessing your current situation. So what is happening with your income? Understanding various sources of income, if there's a primary income, seasonal income, one that's off season, if there are other folks, spouses in the household or partners in the household, you're categorizing those income sources as well. So income, expenses, understanding what the expenses are. There are a few different types, and again, we're going to look at those a little bit more, just to kind of give you a full picture of what those are and what fixed and variable means. So income, expenses, and then debts. So you want to evaluate what are the loans that you're paying on, what are those spending patterns that you have, etc. And then setting up some type of system or using some type of tool. Again, it doesn't really matter what you are using for a tool, whether it's again, pen and paper, notebook, a spreadsheet, an app, whatever works best for you. Those are really the first steps in trying to assess. And really at this stage, you're trying to make a decision about what tool is the best tool for you to start this process. Step two in creating a personal budget is setting goals. And I'll talk a little bit more about what types of goals to set. But this is really a really critical process for you to go through. Your goals reflect your values, and you begin to understand what's important to you. If there are multiple people in the household, you want to involve those, all of those folks. You want to think about what your needs and wants are. And I encourage you to start broad with what your goals are and then fill in details as you go along. I met with a business owner a couple weeks ago, and they have a very seasonal business, and they wanted to be able to, once the business closes in December, they wanted to take just a little vacation because they're feeling burned out after the end of the season every year. So that was their goal. So it's really important that you have some type of goal, and only you know what that is. And it's important to have both short-term and long-term goals. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that and why that's important. So the short-term goals, provide kind of immediate milestones for you to work towards, and they also keep you motivated. So, a short-term goal, I would say a short-term goal in my experience is really anywhere between maybe 3 months and maybe 12 to 24 months, really, depending on kind of how you're looking at it. I know that the slide says a little bit different, but I think that you can modify based on what works best for you. And then your long-term goals really serve as this kind of beacon or guiding light that shape your strategy over time. So both of those types of goals are really important. Um, mostly for, the short term kind of for that psychological, we did it kind of feeling. And then the long term kind of getting you to where you want to be in that long term range. So, and ultimately what you're doing is creating that comprehensive roadmap for where you want to be financially. Step three in the process is to kind of roll up your sleeves and start doing it. So again, it doesn't matter whether you're pulling out a notebook and a pencil or you're using a spreadsheet. We do have some spreadsheets that we can share with you. Happy to share with you if that's something that will work for you. Again, you're identifying those categories, you're tracking income and expenses. We know that there are, again, wild changes between what's happening month to month, even week to week at times, depending on the season. And so I encourage you just to start with what's happening right now, right? Because we do have a step four where we're assessing. So just start with something right now. Now is always a great place to start. And again, your focus is getting to that financial well-being, being able to make sound decisions about money. So that's the goal, of course. And I just want to say a little bit more about the various budget categories. And just some examples of them, just so that you can have a context for those categories, and you start to think about when you're rolling up your sleeves, you start to think about how to categorize some of these expenses. You have predictable and recurring expenses that we typically call fixed. So these are things like your rent or your mortgage, insurance, property taxes. Those mostly are fixed expenses. Utilities generally are fixed, and you can oftentimes average those over time. Your debt payments, right? Car payments, boat payments, truck payments, all of those things are typically fixed. Again, insurance and basic living costs, some other additional fixed categories. And then we have a lot of variable expenses, and those are the expenses that can fluctuate pretty extensively. Those are, vehicle, kind of going out to dinner versus, just going to the grocery store, right? Entertainment, travel, oftentimes medical costs can be a variable expense for folks. And I put savings in both of these categories, and I'll say more about saving and how important saving is, particularly to this industry. Um, it's important for you to have some fixed expenses that are where you're saving, and some variable expenses where we're continually saving. So I think mostly just to emphasize how important saving is to this process. And then step four in creating a budget is simply just to try it out, for you to live with it for a while. Set some time aside to review how things are going, maybe 2 weeks goes by and you realize you forgot a particular expense. That happens. Last week, I took my vehicle to the mechanic and I was just expecting an oil change and I needed front and rear brakes. So again, those variable expenses, um, you know, perhaps not something that we're constantly being aware of, but those are the types of things that once they come into the picture, you can adjust that budget and then make those changes as you need to. And then also celebrating your success, the fact that you're here, that you're looking at this subject matter, thinking about creating a budget, redoing your budget, wherever you're at in this process, that is a tremendous success. So it's important for you to celebrate that for sure. In terms of different tools that we use for personal budgeting, again, I've talked a little bit about this already, but completely fine if it's a notebook and a pencil. That works. I work with a lot of business owners, individuals that use that method. Again, if that's what works for you right now, that's what we're going to encourage you to do right now. Again, we have spreadsheets, there are financial tracking templates, there's a lot of apps. Perhaps some of you use Mint. Mint is sometimes challenging for folks because it requires that you connect your checking account to the app, and that sometimes makes people nervous. I've had that experience with folks. Um, YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. Again, this is a program that you can use on your desktop or on your mobile device that allows you to do some budgeting. It does require a monthly fee. And of course, QuickBooks Self-Employed. QuickBooks Self-Employed, which is a kind of a step down from the regular QuickBooks, just to kind of give you some another resource. But there's a lot out there. This is just a few that I wanted to highlight for without any kind of priority on any of them. These are ones that people that I've worked with have used. Of course, if you want to kind of go up a step, talking with a financial planner or tax professional will help with that budgeting process as well. In terms of different strategies that you could consider, this is a well-known strategy. This 50-30-20 strategy is a well-known strategy, and it requires that you're spending 50% of your income on necessities, 30% on wants, and 20% on savings and paying back debt. So again, it's kind of one of those well-known strategies. And again, the budget that you're creating allows you um, to determine if you're close to those percentages. It's really just a framework to kind of help keep you on track. I did create a budget that is based on this 50-30-20 rubric. So if that's something that resonates with you, feel free to reach out and we can share that resource for you. One other thing to consider in terms of another strategy, if you want to consider this for obviously the peak season changes pretty significantly in the industry. So there's a suggestion of shifting the percentages around to more of this type of strategy. So 60% of that income is going to savings, 30% to needs, and 10% to wants. Again, this is a strategy that can be effective for folks in their budgeting, particularly during peak season. So it's something for you to consider. as you're creating a budget and figuring out what your goals are, what makes most sense for you. This is a really interesting strategy, and I know it's very well known. It's not something that I personally have ever used, but I met someone several weeks ago who uses this particular method. It's called the envelope system. Um, and it requires that you're placing cash in an envelope to pay for the various budget categories, just as the image on the screen suggests. Um, the person that I met actually does this mostly for the wants portion of their budget. So um, they put cash in an envelope for eating out. And if they've eaten out 2 or 3 times that week, the cash is gone. They're no longer able to eat out. So perhaps it's a good strategy that works for wants. But again, this is a strategy that can be useful for people if one of your money mindsets are spending too much. This is a strategy that could help alleviate some of that, the stress of spending too much. If you just allocate a certain amount each week or each month, that sometimes can make it easier for you. I have this slide here mostly just to kind of emphasize the importance of savings. And again, this is a pretty conservative estimate here. But perhaps you've seen this before. Your stop at Dunkin' Donuts every morning can add up. And that's essentially what this slide is sharing, that can be, upwards of $2,000 a year invested over time at a very low percentage of six, can add up. So again, thinking about needs and wants, thinking about your goals, just something for you to consider when you're thinking about budgeting and setting goals around what you would like to accomplish in your personal budget. The Some of the things that you can do to plan for the seasonal fluctuations that is inevitable and in this industry is certainly having some type of emergency fund. The minimum required is typically 3 months, or suggested, I would say the minimum suggested amount is 3 months. 6 months is better, of course, but again, you're going to start with some achievable short-term goals and get yourself, kind of working towards some of the longer-term goals, right? Is it possible for you to prepay some of your bills during the peak season? I have a client that is down east who has some loans with her bank for business operations, and she makes all of her payments in the summer when it's really, really busy. So all those loan payments happen in the summer. On the off season, she doesn't have to worry about those large loan payments because of that arrangement that she has with her bank. Something to consider, is that something that you can do? Certainly, diversifying your income stream will help. A lot of the fishermen in the community that I live in have side jobs. They're doing work in the off season, and that helps with the personal budgeting and decisions around financial decisions. And again, just to kind of reiterate, the goal here with having an emergency fund, potentially prepaying bills and diversifying income is to alleviate some of the stress that is felt, and the pressures of having such a wildly seasonal business. So just to say a look, kind of make a point on the additional revenue stream consideration. Um, Perhaps you're living this as well, is that it can create a lot of challenges just having one revenue stream. So diversifying your income sources is really, really helpful and allows you to be resilient and be able to handle the ups and downs of the seasonal implications. So, and again, the goal here is you have some goals around what is required for your personal household budget, what's required in the business that that you own and operate. You want to make sure that that is as steady as possible, and all of this planning and the diversification helps with that process, right? It allows you to feel secure and grow over time and meet those goals. The other thing I wanted to share, which can be a factor for folks and think about, um, kind of perhaps look at what your insurance package looks like. But this can oftentimes excuse me, a layer of financial security for you. So, a couple things that most folks are doing is, a property or general liability insurance for the business, and then you have health, disability, perhaps a life insurance policy for your personal needs. Again, the combination of these various policies will help mitigate some of the risk that is inevitable in the business. Um, I had a fisherman in my community whose boat just caught on fire, and without a sound insurance policy, that recovery from that would have been really difficult. So it's important to kind of look at those things and look at how, what your policies are doing for you, and make certain that you're mitigating any risk that you have moving forward. And then in terms of some tips for success, it's really important for you to separate your business and personal finances. Again, our focus today was to talk about the personal budgeting, but it's important for you to understand the personal budget apart from the business finances. Really important distinction. So separate bank accounts, we'll talk about that indefinitely if I'm allowed to, is really helpful. And then understanding the variability in your income, you really want to base what your budget is on the most conservative average of past earnings so that you can be accurate and have some wiggle room in the budget. Is it possible for you to automate payments for some of your household expenses? If making payments on time is challenging, I would recommend that. It's always helpful to avoid some of those additional fees that you get charged if you're late with those payments. And then certainly saving aggressively during the peak seasons, spending the peak season earnings wisely and not overspending. Um, I have to say it. I know that it's not a popular statement, but I'm going to say that anyway, that it's important. The savings and using the peak season earnings is important, and again, will help you feel better kind of in the slower months and reach the goals and aim towards that financial well-being. Um, Always recommended, again, kind of looping back into some of the expense categories, recommended to automate some of your savings, right? Make certain that there is X amount of dollars going into savings on a regular basis. Automate the tax obligation as well, so that you're making certain that you're meeting the tax obligation, the self-employment tax obligation of anywhere between 25 and 30%, right? So you want to make sure that you do that and you're not stuck with a giant tax bill and fines during, at April when you're getting ready to pay your taxes and file your taxes. So in terms of next steps, again, just to kind of reiterate that circle that we are considering, assessing your current financial situation, what's happening with income and expenses. Only you know that, so you want to be able to assess that, set some clear goals around what you would like to achieve, create and implement your budget, and then working on your money mindset and aiming towards financial well-being through in the process. If you are interested in additional resources on how to or get more information about kind of financial wellness or financial literacy, there's some great resources that I'm sharing here with you. Again, that will be available on the slide deck for you to click through. Excellent resources there, particularly that Jumpstart Maine's resource clearinghouse, which is great. So feel free to explore those. And then just to kind of full circle with the personal budget and the business cash flow, these two pieces are critical. The link between those is critical. Again, in order for you to be a successful owner and operator of your business, you need to have a sound personal budget and understand what's happening in that personal budget. So again, just to kind of give you this information, allow you to go through these steps and take on creating a budget or refining your personal budget so that you can be more successful in your small business. In terms of our next webinar, we're kind of wrapping up here, so encourage any questions. In a couple weeks, we'll be having a tax preparation webinar related to the industry. So if you're interested in signing up, you can scan the code here, or again, follow the link in the document. Happy to share that with you. We're open to questions. I can
Thank
pause
you.
there. Yeah,
Thank you very much, Jen. I really like the idea you brought up about kind of sneaking some savings into your planning by estimating conservatively on revenues and estimating a little high on your costs. That's a
yes,
nice way to be pleasantly surprised when you actually get your revenues or have to spend those bills. Um,
definitely.
I don't have any other questions, but I want to remind folks who are watching this afterwards, the remaining webinars will either be on the page where you're finding these on the Future of Fishing website and the Island Institute's YouTube channel. The next webinar we have, as Jen mentioned, is on tax preparation. After the day after that, we have another with Profit Decoder to look at financial management tools. This is a tool specifically made for lobster fishing. And if you're looking for one-on-one assistance for your personal budgeting or financial management, you can reach out to Jen. And SBDC is always willing to meet with you one-on-one for confidential assistance. And please stay tuned for the Future of Fishing updates. You can sign up for those regular updates. We'll be going on an ongoing series of these webinars, and we're looking for feedback on what new topics folks might be interested in hearing about. And Jen, myself, and others on our team will put in the research to find the right information and get it out on a webinar. Anything else, Jen, before we close up?
No, I think that's it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this topic today.
Great. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you.